по имени Чаппи с великолепным актерским составом от создателя «Район номер 9» и фильма «Элизиум рай на земле» Нила Бломкампа. И давайте поприветствуем в этом зале громкими аплодисментами исполнителей главных ролей в этом фильме Хью Джекмана, Сигурни Уивер и Дева Пателя.
Hello. Oh. Доброе утро.
Так, спасибо всем за эту теплую встречу и, пожалуй, начнем с первого вопроса, который дерзну задать сам. Нила Бломкампа сегодня, к сожалению, здесь нет. Это позволяет вам говорить о нем, не стесняясь.
I'm sorry for you that Neil's not here, because he's an extraordinary mind, creative mind, very smart man, and in the world of Hollywood, a true maverick, I think. And it was I know I'm speaking on behalf of all three of us, but a great joy for us to work with him. And he makes movies in a science fiction genre that we feel completely different and fun, emotional, as well as great action. I'm not sure you've even asked me a question, I'm just talking. I think that's okay.
Все в порядке.
Yeah.
На самом деле, вот если Дев Патель, например, ни разу еще в крупнобюджетном, высокотехнологичном блокбастере не снимался, это его дебют в этом жанре мирового кино, то для Сигурни Уивер и для Хью Джекмана, конечно, такие фильмы не в новинку, и вы работали с великолепными режиссерами, которые невероятно продвинуты в области технологий. Сегодня, скорее, не продвинутость, не прогрессивность режиссера, это аномалия. Но все-таки что-то нас заставляет чувствовать, что Нил Бломкамп — это уникальное явление. В чем вы видите его уникальность? Каждый из вас. Кто как ее почувствовал? Скажите, пожалуйста.
Well, as Hugh was saying, when I saw District 9, I thought, what a remarkable achievement, because here is a science fiction movie that has tons of action, but it's really very much about very relevant conditions on our planet. And I also found it emotionally such a moving story of this naive, kind of smug bureaucrat who in the course of the story becomes like the shunned aliens in the story. He becomes ill, he becomes hunted, shot at, and I found it one of the most moving movies I've ever seen, and yet it was science fiction where you don't really expect to find that kind of emotional story. So I think he's a great storyteller. He writes brilliantly, he takes huge risks. I mean, he was willing to work with the three of us. And I just, I think we all had the most wonderful time working together. And
Что ж, перейдем к вопросам из зала. Дорогие коллеги, поднимайте руку, чтобы вы видели, кто хочет задать вопрос. Пожалуйста, вот, да, у вас микрофон. Представляйтесь.
Российская газета. Сигурни и Хью не первый раз приезжают, представляются к нам фильмы о новых технологиях. У меня такой вопрос. Если бы у вас была возможность завести своего домашнего робота, каким бы он был? Спасибо.
mine would be like Hugh.
If you ask my kids, they would say, "Don't do it, Sigurni." No. What I want my robot to do. I think it would be, right now I'm here with you, which is a great thrill. I'm away from my family. It'd be good to have a robot like Chappi at home to help, like as a babysitter. I think he'd be a great babysitter, and I'm very forgetful, so I'm sure Chappi will be able to remind me of things.
Следующий вопрос, пожалуйста.
Здравствуйте, коллеги, спасибо большое за этот фильм. Мне кажется, это лучший фильм про роботов, который вот когда-либо снимался. И, соответственно, у меня вопрос. Хотели бы вы перенести свое сознание после смерти в робота? Вот. И вопрос персонально для Хью. Я до конца не верила, что вы действительно играете плохого героя. Вот. Каково это было и почему вы решили сыграть плохого героя? Спасибо.
To be honest, I wanted to work with Nila Blomkamp, and that was, I mean, if he'd asked me to play any other role, I probably would have taken it. It wasn't a decision I want to play a bad guy. And the great thing about working with Neil, I think, as you said, he's made a movie about a robot, artificial intelligence, and yet you fall in love with that robot more than probably any of the other characters. And the same thing, playing the villain, in a way, he's a desperate guy, but he also has a very valid argument against artificial intelligence. So Neil's not afraid to mix up something very reasonable and maybe smart with someone who's perhaps questionable, you know. I'd be tempted. If I was on my deathbed and someone said, oh, would you like to just sort of pop your consciousness into that, I'd certainly have a good think about it, that's for sure.
Пожалуйста.
Здравствуйте. Санкт-Петербург, интернет-издание «Ньюсбитер». У меня вопросы ко всем трем участникам. Хью, вы уже давно здесь бывали, и вы снимаетесь в разном кино. В каком кино для вас интереснее сниматься? Сигурни, в вашей фильмографии тоже присутствуют фильмы в разных направлениях. Какие фильмы все-таки вам ближе? Связанные с чужими, с роботами, с интеллектуальными технологиями? И вопрос Деву. Для вас, наверное, это все-таки такой первый опыт, связанный с такой технологией. Каково вам было сниматься и что наиболее запомнилось? Спасибо.
It was the interesting thing about the film is, you know, we weren't acting opposite tennis balls, and kind of, even though it's loaded with visual effects and the title character is this robot, actually it's a really emotional movie, and you come on and approach it like a very human drama. That at the center of it, it's about the story. The movie raises questions. What is it like to, you know, what is it that makes us human, basically? The irony is that, you know, we're seeing it through the eyes of this robot. So for me, you know, it's a very emotional journey. My character goes through a lot of beatings, you know, mentally and physically from these guys and the Antwerp. But I had a great time. Also, South Africa was, you know, another big character of the film, and it was pretty fun. Yeah.
I think what's exciting, I've been very fortunate in my career to jump around into a lot of genres, and I'm always attracted mainly by the story, because I was a literature major in university, and that's really my way in. I don't really care about the role. In fact, as Hugh said, I would have played a potted palm in the office had Nila Blomkamp asked me. But what I think is very exciting about science fiction, I think it's a genre that does not get enough respect, because in fact, exploring what it is to be human, which is what Jim Cameron says is the purpose of science fiction, is something where you can, if you're a great director like Nila Blomkamp or Jim Cameron or Ridley Scott, you can explore a lot of social issues that are actually of great relevance, not only to, you know, people our age, but also I think very much to young people. And I think it is a very satisfying story because it has a real emotional arc, but I also think it will be a very moving story for young people. It has all the things they love, like violence and, you know, Dion's wood, but it's also about Dion, you know, Dev's character, giving a message to this robot kid in very negative circumstances that he must be who he is, and no one should tell him what he can and can't do. So I think it's a great family movie, and I'm so glad there is a science fiction movie that transcends a lot of the labels, because it was a very satisfying movie to do, and I'm very excited to see how the world responds to it, frankly.
I agree a lot with. I end up agreeing a lot with you, Sue. Yeah. But I'm drawn to story and I'm drawn to character. I think back to the films that really stunned me when growing up, like Indiana Jones. I loved Indiana Jones and all the action was great, but I just loved that character. The next day I wanted to be Indiana Jones when I saw Deer Hunter and Robert De Niro's character. It was those characters, and I think what Sigurni says is so true. People are going to watch this movie. I mean, my daughter's only 9, she probably can't see it, but I kind of wish she could see it, because I know she would fall in love with Chappy. My wife, who, by the way, will tell you openly she's not into science fiction movies, cried during this movie, and she absolutely loved it. So it's a movie that speaks to everybody, because it's a movie, as Neil would say, which is about the soul. What is consciousness? What is it to be human? What is it to be alive, conscious? And so that speaks to everybody.
Следующий вопрос, пожалуйста, у кого микрофон?
Здравствуйте, Кристиан Бодров, журнал «25 кадр». У меня один общий вопрос для всех. Вот как вы относитесь к идее создания в нашем реальном мире в будущем роботов, которые могли бы заменять людей? Вот, например, роботы-журналисты.
Are there any robot reporters here? We're all robots. What did you say? What kind of robot would we create, or what? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah. I'm one of those people who'd prefer to have a driverless robotic car than a human driving it. I mean, I live in New York City, and I can tell you it'd be better to have cars not with humans driving it. I think it's not something to be afraid of. When the train was invented, back whenever that was, a lot of people on the planet thought it was the greatest evil, that it would destroy humanity, that this was going to change the world for the worse. We're evolving, we're changing. If something truly like a robot like Chappy could be created, I mean, I watched this movie, I prefer Chappy to almost every human in the movie, so I'm all for it.
No, I think I'm very excited. I feel like Neil started to send me links about robots, and I had no idea how advanced these industries were around the world. And every culture seems to create robots that are very expressive of what's important to them. So in Japan, you have very sort of graceful women robots, and then you have very kind, sort of very, I don't know, very humble little tea-making robots. And of course, America has these terrifying soldier robots. And but for me, as a working mother, if I could have had a nice, friendly robot, you know, when my daughter came home from school, who had cookies and milk and said, "Tell me about your day," and actually could maybe film it, and then I could see it later when I came in after my show was over, I feel like they're going to be part of our lives instantly, and we're going to look back and think, how did we ever do it up?
Yeah. I think I'm all for humans. I hope they don't take over the humans' jobs, you know, in these factories and things like that. So, you know, I'm kind of old school in that way, but I think, you know, in jobs like, you know, firefighters or police officers, you know, if there's a way that robots could aid and help save lives to the people that put their lives on the line for us, that would be incredible. You know, like in Chappy, you know, there's this, my character creates this droid that helps aid the police force in South Africa, and, you know, the police deaths are all-time low and civilians are not dying anymore. I think that's a really cool idea.
Хотели ли бы вы работать с роботами-журналистами, запрограммированными на хорошие, интересные, всегда продуманные вопросы?
No, that'd be boring.
Дальше следующий вопрос.
Добрый день, я кино.ру. Спасибо большое за фильм, за прекрасный. И поздравляю вас с началом весны. Вопрос к Хью Джекману. Вы часто играете героев, на которых хочется быть похожим. Какой пример подаете вы в этом фильме? Вопрос к Деву Пателю.
And issues of poverty and many other things. So there are things that put